Okay, so I'm going to do a word mail merge class today. And I'm going to get right to the point because a lot of times when you're doing this type of project, you need to get moving. It's something you need to do at work and you know how deadlines are. So I'm going to go ahead and first define mail merge. So the mail merge is pulling data into a document or envelopes and labels from the data source for the purposes of quickly producing a mailing. So that's pretty much in my own words is you're basically taking data from one place and you're pulling it into a Word document or labels so that you can send form letters um, or envelopes and labels. So the data source piece is actually the file containing the data you want to merge. So this could be a Word table, an Excel file, or an Access database. So this usually has names and addresses of people you actually want to send a letter to, or it could be even more customized. Mailing main letter or envelope and label is the document you're actually going to have that contains the information you want to send or is the actual label you want to send. So example would be when Publishers Clearinghouse sends a mailing out and you receive that mailing, you might open it and it'll say, you, Mary, have received this because you won $1 million. This would be the case if your numbers win. Thank you, Mary, for sending this in, something like that. So it'll have your name in the body of the letter. And the way that happens is there's a list that the Publishers Clearinghouse has of all the different people they want to send to, say your name and your address. And then they basically pull that name into an actual form letter. And so that's actually an example of a mail merge. So what I want to do now is I want to go over to Word and I want to show you how to do an actual mail merge from a Word document. So when you have a Word document as your data source, it's just a table. So you want to just make that table real nice and clean, and you want to have it have a header row. So the header row will have the name and address and all that information, and then you'll have the actual names and addresses below the header row. So you always want to start that way. So we have our header row here, and we have our data. The other thing is we want to get rid of any text. So we don't want any text other than the table. So we'll go ahead and clean up that text. So the next thing is we want to look for any kind of blank rows. I don't like to have really blanks in there. It's not going to hurt anything really, but it's just nice to delete them if they're there, because when you merge, you're going to have blank records. So let's go ahead and click that blank row there. So I just go from my left margin, I just click on it, right click, and then choose to delete rows. So now that we got rid of the blanks, what we need to do, I always just do a test real quick to make sure I have just one table of contiguous data. And contiguous meaning it's all together, it's all touching. So I'm going to go and move my mouse cursor up to the upper left-hand corner of the table. And as soon as my mouse cursor becomes a four-headed arrow, I'm going to click on that. And when I click on the upper leftmost corner there, it shows the entire table is selected now. So since everything's shaded, that's all going to be part of the same table. Now, as I scroll down, you'll notice everything's shaded still until we get to this point. So where it says Joe here, Joe reads it down is not shaded. So that means that is a different table. So if that happens, you can either put that table together with the previous table, or you can delete that table. So to delete that table, let's say we just want to delete that table, we can just click. Again, we click in that table first, and when we click in that table, you can click this little four-headed arrow, and then we're just going to, once it's selected, right-click and then choose to delete table. So we're just going to do that. We'll delete the table for this exercise. And now we have one big contiguous table. So now when I click to select the table, you can see everything's selected. Now what I need to do is I need to save this data source in some place where I can find it when I do the actual merge. So I'm going to click File and then Save As, and I'm going to click Browse. And I'm going to go ahead and browse out. I'm going to scroll up. I'm going to browse out to the Documents folder. And under the Documents folder, I'm going to go to my Mail Merge Data Source folder. And then I'm going to name this just Holiday Cards here. So data source to let myself know it's the data source. And I'm going to then call it Data Source Holiday Labels. All right, and I'm going to click save. And then I'll put my data source out there. So now this data source is currently saved. So what I want to do is close the data source. I always like to close my data source before I do the actual mail merge. And now in Word, I'm going to bring Word up. I'm just going to bring up a blank document. If you press Control and N as in Nancy together, it gives you a blank document. And you can see right now at the top, this is document 3. So that's just a plain blank document. So now what I want to do is I want to go and I want to make this into my labels. So I'm going to go to the mailings ribbon. And on the mailings ribbon, you'll have a Start Mail Merge button. I'm going to click Start Mail Merge. Then I'm going to click Labels. Now when the labels box comes up, you may have a different vendor. Most of the time, when you buy labels, most labels are Avery. So I just chose Avery US from the drop down here. You can choose whatever the vendor is, and once you choose the vendor, you're going to have the possible label types below. And in the label types, you're going to have a number. So that number will normally be on the upper right-hand corner of the actual label you're going to print to, or on the box of labels you're going to use. So in our case, we're going to use 5160 address labels. I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And now I have my labels. So now that I have my labels, I can go ahead and start putting in my actual data. So what I want to do is I want to select my recipients. So if I click the Select Recipients button, I'm going to go ahead and click Use Existing List. And that existing list is that data source we created a minute ago. So when I click Use Existing List, it goes to my data sources under my documents. And then I'm going to just go ahead and click the last one here, the holiday labels one. And I usually just check the timestamp. If that's the latest one near 249. I'm going to click OK. All right, now what happens is Word actually hooks this document up to the data source document, which is basically our table document. So now it's hooked up. Now what we need to do is specify what our actual information is going to be. Like we want to need to specify that we want to put the names and addresses and how we want them to look. So before I do that, I like to select the table. So if I go up again in the upper left-hand corner until I get a four-sided arrow, I click when I get a four-sided arrow. And then what I'm going to do is just make sure there's no paragraph issues, because it makes it hard to deal with when you have paragraph spacing that's unusual or there's problems. So I'll go to the layout ribbon at the top. And after my table is selected in layout, I'm going to go ahead and make sure there's no before or after. So I'm going to click the lower right-hand corner of the paragraph section to get to the paragraph settings. And I'm going to go ahead and go to before, make it 0, after, make it 0. Then I'm going to go to line spacing. I'm going to make that single, and I'm going to click OK. And so that just makes the spacing just single spacing and makes it nice and clean so we can get all of our data into our labels. So now what I want to do is I want to go to the mailings ribbon. And on the mailings ribbon, I'm going to go ahead and insert merge field. So the merge field is actually the data we want to merge. So I'm going to click on insert merge field. And Word is saying, well, you have these choices, first, last, address 1, 2, and so on. So I'm going to click first name. And when I put these tags in here, when I put these fields in here, it's going to say the name of the field. And I want to treat that name of the field as if it was real text. So I'm going to just go and put first name in. I'm going to put a space in there. And I'm going to go to insert merge field. Again, I'm going to put last name. So just treat this as text. So if I did an actual label and I saw the text, it would say, John Jones, press enter, and then I would go and put John Jones's first address line in there. So I'm going to put address 1. So we might have 304 Jones Avenue, and if I press enter, I'm going to put address line 2, and then I might have apartment A, something like that. And then I'm going to press enter again. I'm going to go ahead and put in my city, comma, space, state, and then I'm going to put in my 2 spaces and a zip code. All right, so I have my first sort of label set up, and what I can do at this point is I can click on the preview results button here. If I click preview results, it shows me what the actual the merge will look like. So I'm going to take that off for now, and then I'm going to go ahead and populate the labels with the fields because that looked pretty good. The only thing I did notice when I went to preview results is I did notice an extra space here. So I think in my data, I have a space after one of the names of my data source already. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back. Preview results is a toggle, so I can toggle that on or off as I go. So I'm going to toggle that off. I'm going to go ahead and change this spacing here to no space because my data source already has a space. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to need to populate this entire document with the field names I have here. So I'm going to go ahead and click the Update Labels button. This is a real key thing I think people miss. So if I click Update Labels, that updates my entire label document. And so now if I click Preview Results, I see all my labels in there. So I see all the names and addresses in there, and I can kind of scroll down and see if I have any major issues in there. You also notice that there's no address line 2. It just omits it and just goes on. So that's a nice feature as well. So this is what my labels are going to look like when I merge them. So again, remember we're in preview mode right now. If I click off the preview results button, it takes me back to my field looking mode or my design mode. At the top of the document, I can see where it says document 3. So document 3 is going to be the actual mail merge main document. So that's where we make big global changes. So if I wanted to change the way these labels look, I can click on the select table option here, and then I can make these labels maybe centered. So if I go to the layout ribbon up here, I can go and I can choose in this area where it says alignment. I can kind of change the alignment. I can make them centered. And so I can do different things globally on this document. Once I merge the document into actual labels, I can change an individual label, but if I want to make something really big, some big global change like the centering, I would usually want to come back to this document. So in document 3, what we want to do is we want to go ahead and merge this thing. So we're going to go to the mailings ribbon again. In the mailings ribbon, we're going to click the finish or merge button. The two choices we usually deal with are print documents, and the print documents just takes us and this document and it merges it with the data source and it prints it out right away. Or you can click edit individual documents. So edit individual documents allows you to see the actual labels. So we'll go ahead and click edit individual documents. And under merge records, we have Word is asking us, do you want to merge all the records or do you want to merge just certain records? So in this case, we want to merge all the records. And when we talk about records, we're dealing with the rows within the table that we were looking at earlier. So each name and address is a record. So we're going to go ahead and click OK. And then Word is going to merge us into a new label document. So we can see our label document there. And then all we have to do at this point is print the document. If we want to change anything globally, again, we want to go back over to the actual mail merge main document, change it, and then remerge it. So right now at the top, you can see this document's called Labels 1. If we want to go over to the main document again, just click on the View ribbon up here, click Switch Windows, and then go to Document 3. And that's our main document. So we can make a big change again. So we can make these, instead of making them centered, we can make them, let's say, left aligned. And then we can go ahead and merge them, finish a merge. Then we can do edit individual labels again, and we can just say all, and then we can have these aligned left as well. So we just did a left aligned version. So we have now labels 2, which is a sheet of left aligned labels. We can also go back to labels 1, which is the center aligned labels. So we can print either version.